Good stuff. So, hello, this is Lisa Khera from Inbalance Pilates, and I want to welcome you today to this feature interview. I'm so happy to have Laurie Maddalena with me here. She is an author and the CEO of Envision Excellence, a leadership consulting firm that provides leadership development programs for managers and executives, keynote speeches, team building, and leadership assessments. She's a dynamic and engaging keynote speaker who has delivered impactful presentations to leaders nationally. Laurie has been personally mentored by Jack Canfield, author of The Success Principles, and is a certified Success Principles trainer. And she's also worked directly with Brené Brown, bestselling author and researcher, and is also a Dare to Lead facilitator. Co-author in the book Women Who Empower, congratulations, and in the upcoming book Women Who Shine that's coming out this summer. And that actually is how we are both connected as authors in the Inspired Impact book series. So welcome, Laurie, and thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Lisa. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for being here. So I'm so thrilled that you're here. It's so awesome to welcome in authors from Kate Butler's community. Being a part of the book series was just absolutely phenomenal. And as you know, with going through it once and then going through it a second time, you know exactly what I'm speaking about. I had the honor of being in the second book, Women Who Inspire. And then, as I said, we've got Women Who Empower and Women Who Shine. So my first question that I'm really curious about is when you first decided to be a co-author and get in with Women Who Empower, was that something, did you always want to be a writer? Did you want to write a book? Like how did that all come about? And of course, how did you meet Kate Butler?
Sure. Well, I wouldn't say I always knew I wanted to be a writer of a book, although I'd say the past 10 years was something that was a goal of mine. And I'm actually in the process right now of writing my own leadership book, which is like putting a 500,000 piece puzzle together. It's a lot of work.
Oh, wonderful. So
So
you've got a few writing projects on the
yes,
go.
yes. And I met Kate through the Jack Canfield community, which is a wonderful community a few years ago. And so we were connected and I watched what she's been doing. And last year, I just thought about, I've shared a story in a lot of my keynote speeches with leaders that seemed to resonate with people. And I thought that story could be impactful. And so I got onto her Inspired Impact series. And as you mentioned, I did the story of Women Who Empower. So that's how I became connected and thought, why not share a story and I can still work on my book on the other end.
Yes, and keep just developing that community and platform. Now, when you wrote Women Who Empower, tell everyone a little bit about that chapter and just how that came about, how you decided which part to write about, and just things around that first book.
Sure. So that story was about how your disadvantages can become your advantages. And in that story, I share a little bit about some time in my teenage years where my family struggled with money. And there was a time we were on government assistance. And it was a challenging time for me because I felt like success wasn't something for me and things were hard. And I went to college and graduated with $40,000 of debt and just felt really like a victim and like things were happening to me. But I realized I didn't want to be poor. I wanted to create something better and felt like I could. So I started studying personal development at that time, probably in my late teenage years. And over time, started to realize that I couldn't change those experiences. I could only shift how I saw them and take responsibility for them, which I did. So that $40,000 of student loans, it took me 13 years, but I did pay that off. But probably a few years into that, I realized that I had to shift my perspective around it, that the seemingly disadvantages in my childhood, which was not having a lot of money or at least feeling different and having that experience, which was hard and hard on my family, actually became an advantage because I developed the drive and the perseverance to overcome things that I'm not sure I would have if I hadn't had that experience. So it's something I carry with me to the work I do today.
Yeah, and when did you kind of notice that you were seeking out the personal development to kind of combat the, not whether it was, okay, I could go down this path if I'm thinking this way, or if I change my belief around, when, were you still in high school then, early 20s, or did that take till later?
I think it was around age 18, 19. And I think the first thing I did was Tony Robbins. I bought his, at that time, they were cassette tapes. Some people may not know what those are, right? But
Yes, I
cassette tapes
remember
at the
listening,
time.
yep, in the car. Well, I
Yes,
think I
yes.
might
I
have
had
had
all those
CDs, but
tapes.
yeah,
I
also cassettes.
I listened to all those cassettes and I started seeking out books, just feeling like there was some other way. Like there was some semblance of control I could have over this, and seeing how some people who had like way worse circumstances than I had, how they had overcome and created the success. So I really became obsessed with that, I'd say in my early 20s, and started applying that and working hard, becoming indispensable to my bosses. And over time, I saw that when I showed up and I took ownership of things, when I put in full effort and showed that for my company, that I was rewarded. I was rewarded in many ways. And so it started to work, and I started to see the positive impact of that in my life.
And then now with the programs and services you offer, as you said, that's really intertwined in, and then to be able to pull that material into another book and just sharing that service, and that's just wonderful. And going through book launch once and now twice, and then it will be a third time, it'll be a breeze because you have all of that knowledge and support and community on your side, which is so where it's at and so where it's needed, which is wonderful. And then with the getting involved with Jack Canfield and the breakthrough to success and train the trainer, how did you get involved with that?
Well, I was listening to a podcast one day. I think this is about 5.5, 6 years ago. And Jack was being interviewed about his Success Principles book. And I'm actually surprised it took me that long to come to that book, because I had studied so many success books. But it was the 10th anniversary and it was being re-released. And he was sharing about that. Of course, I had so many of his Chicken Soup for the Soul books, so
Mhm.
many of them. So I knew of Jack for a long time. But I read this book, and I remember one night turning to my husband and saying, this book has everything I've ever studied about success. This is fantastic. And there was a piece in the back there that talked about his training program. And so I looked it up, and it was an investment. And at that time, it was a really, really big investment in myself. But I said, what would you think about me going through this training and this certification? And he's always been very supportive. So he said, go for it. So I signed up, and not only did it impact me personally, I mean, I thought, well, this is something I could probably use in my work with leaders and really help them build more success in their life, whatever that looks like to them. It was so impactful for me personally. And then I use it in probably in some way or another, almost every leadership program I do, or every leadership workshop that I facilitate. I'm using at least the concept of taking ownership. And that can apply not just to personal life, in my life of taking ownership of my circumstances and my future, but in the workplace. A lot of leaders want their employees to take ownership, right? How do you ignite ownership in your employees? And I think that starts with leaders modeling that for their employees and showing up in certain ways. So I use that work in that way as well.
And even as a mother, as a parent at home, and just showing the, positive impact that we can have on our children, and learning, sharing certain various kind of personal development tools at an early age so that they can really
Yes.
learn to rely on that, especially now with just so many changes. And as you said, with even when it comes to workplace, and there's been quite a change if corporations and that are still working from home,
Right.
and that's you're completely a different way that you're motivating your staff. I'm sure you've had to address different things that way, and just trying to acknowledge that we have to keep that mental health work, everything in check, and really look at and give them the opportunity to ask for help and know what
Right.
services are there and support and just various ways to motivate. And now, if we're also at home, being the parent, being the teacher, having everyone at home, again, it just changes, I'm sure, expectations that management might have to maneuver through.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure, I think, and it's not easy to be a leader anyway in today's environment, because as new generations have come in, expectations have changed, and so it takes a lot more to be a modern leader than maybe 30 years ago. And then the pandemic, I mean, for all of us, whether it's parents or leaders, having to really scramble and be working completely differently than what they expected or what they were used to. I have a lot of clients who are moms who have kids at home, and just like what you and I were talking about, of having your kids doing virtual school while you're trying to work full time, all those pressures and stresses, and then being a leader of people who are experiencing that too, of how do you show that support and engage them in a way, and really help them through that experience. And so I think this work is so helpful in, I can say for me, the pandemic, those first 3.5 months were probably some of the hardest of my adult life because I remember the day where they told us our kids were going to be home for 2 weeks. And the
Mhm.
school said, oh, 2 weeks we're going to close. And I just thought, 2 weeks, what am I going to do with my kids for 2 weeks while I'm trying to work? I mean, that, wrapping my mind around that
Right.
was so hard at that time. And I'm kind of glad they did a phased approach of closing over. Now it's
Breaking
four
news.
weeks. Now it's like 2 months. Because I think if they told me we're going to be closed for 6 months, I think I would have gone crazy. But it was really challenging. I do this work, I live this work, and I found it really life altering and stressful and hard. It was almost a grief process of having to go through those stages of acceptance to
Yep.
come through that and then be like, okay, now how do I handle this? And how do I adjust how I'm doing my business, which was 100% in person before
Mhm.
this, now 100% online, which a year later I can look back and what a blessing. I love it. I love engaging with people virtually and doing these workshops. But at the time that was hard. And so, but being able to address that and look at it from the stance of, okay, this is happening. I can't change that. How can I use this, or at least handle it in a way that is more productive than just complaining, or thinking that, throwing my hands up and not dealing with it.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that is my experience 100%. And we had talked about this a little bit before, we hit record, and just the going through so many things, definitely going through loss. I know for myself, kind of the way I navigated through it, I had, when they said, okay, school is, you're not going to be coming, they had told us they wouldn't be coming back for 2 weeks after the break. And my intuition was like, okay, this is going to be a while, right away that afternoon before they even said this is what's happening. And I immediately went into, a few years ago when I had a concussion and then I had to downsize my business, I ended up closing it, moving it to my house. There was a lot of grief that came with that I got through. But when this all came out, my immediate mind was, okay, what do I do to not go down that same grief? Because again, I was faced with Pilates clients done, right? Because I'd moved my studio to my home. So immediately my mind jumped into, okay, what helped me get through that grief last time? It was personal development, it was masterminds, it was really watching my energy, really being mindful of um, who I let into my world, right? Who
Yes.
energy, where was I letting stuff seep out or seep in? Personal development every single day without fail. So definitely going through the grief of losing my brick and mortar Pilates,
Right.
a few years back really set me up for, as with anything, we look to our past experiences to how can we do better this time around? How can we not? Okay, I didn't like how that felt. I'm not going down that road. How can I stay on this path? And yeah, I remember one of business. I have a lot of business mentors that I love to learn from online. As I said, it really got me through head concussion stuff back in the day. And one of my mentors, Sarah Dan, she was offering like a daily thing right in March there. Danelle Delgado, who I'm in a year-long mastermind with right now. And then things with, anytime Kate Butler offers stuff to our community on that. So it just goes to show how much you have to choose to, who am I surrounding myself with? What support do I need? Who do I need in my corner? Do I need to ask for help? Do I need, so much around awareness and just being open to wanting to build that best version of ourselves.
Right.
Yes, there's ups and downs, and my goodness, through the year, with everything, but knowing who you have in your corner when things are going good and when you've been able to like really keep that on track, always gravitate towards those people and those situations and conversations.
Well, and those practices, right? They're practices. So the personal development, the mindset work, all the things that you and I are involved in the communities that you're involved in, and who you surround yourself. These are all practices that help us to be ready, not even just for every day, but then when things like this happen. I mean, I think your story of your concussion is just a beautiful example of what a hard situation you went through and for a while. And then you were able to get through that and use that experience when COVID hit last year and learn from it so that you could bounce back. I mean, it took me a lot longer because I hadn't had anything that big in a while.
Yeah.
But I also think about, anything that we're developing. I think we're always developing toward our potential and we never reach that. But it's a constant thing as we grow and develop. There's always something to learn. And parenting has been a great example for me of taking ownership of that and making that a practice, because it's not, I always thought I'm the oldest of 5 kids, that it would just be easy. I've been around kids all my life. I've helped my brothers and sisters, and 3 kids is not easy. So
And how old are your children again?
my kids are 10, 8, and 6. And it gets a little
Okay.
chaotic. And I like order, I like peace, I like quiet, and those don't go with kids, as I'm learning.
Or everyone being home at the same
Oh
time.
goodness. So that pandemic
Months
piece
and
was like,
months.
ooh, and then trying to get them on, and they didn't want to do the work. And so it was just crazy. But I even look at how can I become a better parent, that looking for those resources. And I think this is the same for personal development. It's a practice of always looking for how can I be better, reading books and taking care of your mindset, being around the right people who support you and encourage you. I've taken courses on parenting. I've had a parenting coach. I've worked through that. I'm still working through it to get to that next level. So I don't think it ever stops.
You're right. You're right. And that's such a good way to look at it. Just always keeping that personal development and growth. And yes, yes, yes. And tell us, so I'm always so impressed at how Kate, our publisher, Kate Butler, attracts just the most amazing humans into her community. And it's such a testament, there you are going on to do a second book within the series. So it just goes to show what a fantastic community it is. How did you, so from your story in Women Who Empower to your chapter in Women Who Shine, tell us a little bit about that journey.
Yeah. So, well, when the first one came out, I mean, what a great experience. As you know, you've been through that, the community and just being able to share that story. And when Kate was doing this next book, frankly, I just didn't think anything of it. And she had reached out to me and said, you mentioned you might have another story in you. And I thought, that's interesting. So of course, I love working with her and talked about it and realized that I have some childhood things of being teased or challenges in that way, not having confidence as a child. And I think that's not, my story is not really unusual. I think a lot of us don't peak in our younger years. There's people in high school who peaked and they were like beautiful and talented and good at sport. Like that wasn't me. I was not that person. And so my experience in that was just like lacking confidence, not feeling good about myself, and how I switch that. Like now I feel like I'm at my peak, and I'm always working to be my best every year. I'm not perfect. I'm developing myself all the time. but I love my life now and I've created this beautiful life and continue to. And so this story is really about how I overcame those things. And I hope some of those lessons and practices of how I went through that journey will resonate with a lot of people of how, again, it doesn't matter what your past was, or, maybe you weren't the most popular person in high school, or you struggled or had challenges. How can you create your future and focusing on that to create the life that you want, a life that you love?
Oh, that's beautiful. And that book is coming out this summer.
Yes.
So we're coming up to that. Do you have your chapter all complete? It's been submitted. Where are you at with that part of the process?
That's a great question, because if Kate were watching this right now, she'd be like, Laura's behind. She needs to send me
Oh,
the tracker. I have 90% done, and there's
yay, you're
there's
almost there.
I'm almost there. But just being a writer, I've written blogs and many things. I'm always like rethinking and going over it, and what should I change here, and making sure it resonates the way I want it to. So
Yeah.
I'll be submitting. I'm gonna to state that here in the next week. So yes, it's almost there.
Oh, good. Well, you've got your
I
accountability
have my accountability
right
son.
here. That's all.
Yes,
No, that's amazing. And then Women Who Empower, which month was it that that one came out?
December, this past December.
Okay, so okay, right. So hopefully, depending at some point, you'll be able to get into the community and have lots of fun with book signings and get it into local bookstores and things like that. How are things where you are? You're in Maryland, right?
Yeah, I'm in Maryland, and things are starting to get a little better in the sense of more people vaccinated. So opening up a little. We're still being safe, but it's getting there. So I think it's looking up.
And you said schools just opened again for in person, or they've been open for a bit?
So my kids went back in September, which I know we were talking about this before, how I was so happy. I love my kids, and it was fun a little bit. I won't admit that it was, it was hard. But now they're back in school. It's great for them. It's great for us. It's really been a good balance. And really this slowing down piece this past year has been so nice, of not having a lot of activities. I feel like before COVID, we were constantly running around with our kids, and
Yep.
they're doing a couple things now, but there's much more family time and a little time to breathe and relax and enjoy each other. So that piece has been nice. I can enjoy them more when they're in school during the week.
Yeah. And, family time, like just getting that extra family time and getting that just and taking the time to really look at our priorities of where do we want to spend our time? What do we want to spend our time doing? What do we want to be creating? What do we want to radiate? That kind of thing I find is so important. So it as well, if you agree, like gave us that opportunity to really kind of step back and reprioritize our time and
Absolutely. I totally agree. And as someone who had pretty much 100% business in person,
Mhm.
there's a piece of that traveling that I was doing, even in the DC area here where I live, or traveling to different states and doing speeches. And while I loved that, and when the pandemic hit, I was really sad at first, like, oh, I miss that. I love being in person. I love engaging that way. And over this past year, I've realized how much I love being at home. And in fact, I was talking to my husband about going to a conference this summer. And I'm like, oh, do I go? Do I not go? And he's like, I think it would be good for you to go. But I've really loved being at home. So there are you're right. I agree. It's, really understanding your priorities. I think for me, as we go back and we ease into this, I realize I don't have to RSVP yes to every birthday party that my kids are invited to. We could spend
Mhm.
weekends doing that, all the time. What's important to us? What do we want to do as a family? How can we prioritize that? And those type of things over just running around like crazy. So I've definitely gotten more clarity around that this past year.
Yeah, and I mean, it's been so nice to be able to just, yeah, to take a break from some of those social things that, yeah, you just kind of keep, oh, I'm supposed to do this, and this, instead of just really stopping and seeing like what is really the best priority for my family at this point and that kind of thing. Where do I want to spend my time and energy? 100%. And then, and with the book, so with the book that is coming out in the summer, what fun things do you have going on around that, just with just any other things that you'd like to share, like any, because I know, as you said, you were doing everything in person on foot. Now everything is online, so it brings you to, workshops and different trainings. And so tell us just about some of the offerings that you have going on.
Right. Well, I'm working on some right now, which this past year has inspired me to really create an online leadership experience, which I've had this idea for years and just really haven't had the time. And with COVID and being forced to do things on Zoom, I say forced at first, but now I just love it. So that's something that will be coming in the future as I work on that and create that. Of course, writing the book so that I can hopefully impact more leaders in that way, and just continuing to offer these virtual sessions. I think many people have seen how effective they can be, and even a 2 or 3 hour session with their team that can be infuse some energy and some tools and strategies and practices. So continuing to do that as well.
Oh, that's wonderful. Where is the best place for everyone to find you? Would that be at your website?
That would be my website. Of course, they can connect with me with and on LinkedIn as well, or Instagram. I just got on Instagram recently, so I'm getting into that a little bit, but certainly LinkedIn and my website.
Okay, and I'll definitely be sure to link those up so that everyone can find you. And then be sure to stay tuned for Women Who Shine, that is coming out this summer. And we can also link in where to get Women Who Empower. And then that next book that you have on the back burner in the works, be sure to share that out with us and let us know. Um, because I'm happy to share that out and cheer you on for that. As I said, it's such a wonderful community to be a part of. As I said, for myself, it's nice to have. When we're going through different things and coming into this book series, like whether you've already written a book or many books, or it's something that you've daydreamed about wanting to be an author, like it's all walks of life, all backgrounds. And Kate is so amazing at honing in on exactly where to start and stop that story. What is it that you want to bring to the table with that book? In absolutely every story, it's just she has such an unbelievable knack for bringing that out, right? And I'm sure you would have felt with those sessions, like it's just what a craft. She has such an amazing craft.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I love when I started reading the stories in the books. Everybody's story is unique, yet you can resonate with something in each, right? And I think that's the beauty of this inspired book impact series, is that every story has something that you can take away. And some people had experiences way harder than mine, and I read that and thought, wow, like what an impact. I got something out of that. They inspired me or empowered me, or I could resonate with something in that story. So this series is just such a great way to help people see that everyone goes through something, right? We all see the front stage, the facade, or the things that are out there on social media or other things. We don't always see the backstage of what's going on. And so when you see more of that, you can relate to people better. And I think that's really the great thing about this series.
Yes, and it's all, you are so 100% right. I 100% agree. And just sometimes offering someone just a few steps, if you've gone through an experience and you can just be able to help someone a little bit further along, even if it's a baby step. Sometimes we think that we have to have all this experience or all these training courses or this, that, the other. And sometimes it's just the experiences that we've gone through, and when you can just be like hold that inspiration to keep yourself accountable and keep going, and sometimes you'd never realize who you're inspiring along the way. So yeah, so to just be of service like that, and continue, as for you, like to continue just looking for, even though you couldn't continue to serve your clients in person, to be able to take it online. And, how are you still able to connect with your clients and deliver that knowledge, right, in a way that everyone's had to pivot and change. So amazing to you for doing that, because it's not an easy task. There's a lot of tech that's involved. There's a lot of back end planning and accountability, right, and support. We can say, okay, I'm going to make this course, I'm going to do this thing, and then a few weeks can pass and maybe we still haven't done 1, 2, 3 on the list, right? So it's so awesome job for really getting that off the ground.
Thank you. I know, I feel like in many ways, just in life, we can feel stuck sometimes, right? And I know for me in the beginning of the pandemic, it felt that way, feeling stuck. And then you start to realize, how can I approach this situation, whether it's, a past issue or challenge you've gone through, or what's happening right now. And again, that's what I love about these stories, because I think reading other people's experiences and seeing how they became unstuck, or how they overcame something that was so challenging and they're doing service in the world or impacting other people, is just really inspiring.
Yes, and finding out about other businesses, going to those, it's a wealth of directory just going into the bio pages in the whole series. There's so many different coaches and consultants and mentors and products and services, and just to tie in together offers and book platforms and things like that. It's a wealth of community and support and knowledge just in that little bio directory on its own, right? We're so blessed for Kate's wonderful intuitive gifts to sort and select the just wonderful humans that are really there for each other. So it's such a blessing to be involved, and thank you so much for coming on today. It's been wonderful to meet, as I said, so many wonderful women within this community. And from as we said, her first calls with getting it sorted, what story to tell, right through to the beautiful cover designs and graphic designing and things like that. So it's really nice to know that we're supported from that idea, that wanting to write, right through to book launch and everything that comes after it, which is so exciting.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Lisa. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on. So again, we'll link up everything in the notes so that everyone can find Laurie easily. And on your website, you've got some leadership opt-ins and some freebies there, so people can head to your website and check that out. On my end, if you're looking for some writing prompts, I have some creative writing prompts. Best place to find that is Instagram at Concussion Writing Community, and it's in my link in the bio. Or if you're into Pilates, all things Pilates, then at my website, the Gratitude Goals, Pilates, and Posture freebie. So I'm all about freebies and opt-ins and having fun with that, and having too much fun on Canva and all that jazz. So,
You have so
so
many great resources. You do.
yeah, it's lovely. So again, thanks again for tuning into this feature interview. I'm just going to sign off of Facebook Live here and return to you, Laurie. So just one moment. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Hang on just one second. Okay, I'm quite sure I stopped it. Sorry, I'm just checking on my, okay, good. I was just checking on my phone. I'm like, wait a second. Sometimes I